Hello again. Today we're going to talk more about Azure Data Studio. Today we're going to dig into the connections, more specifically database connections for Azure Data Studio. So let's jump right into it. What you see on the screen are the different categories of connections. The first two is what we'll cover. These are your database connections. The nice thing about Azure Data Studio, unlike Management Studio, is it gives you all kinds of options for grouping and color coding your connections that will communicate more information in a single glance than what you had previously. You just have to set up your connections in such a way that they're organized to reflect how your servers are purposed within your organization. So we'll start by showing the fact we have three different groupings for the servers. We have a total of about 8 servers here, grouped into 3 different categories. These groupings are controlled by the server groups. So to create a new one, you just single click on new server group. If you want to change an existing server group, you would right click on that server group, choose edit, and now you can give it a name, of course a description if you like, and then a color category. So if this was the most important, maybe these are production servers, you could choose red, that's red, and then the actual server grouping will take that color, so it gives you some immediate feedback perhaps on what are more important servers, or you want to be more careful if you're actually writing queries against these servers, or maybe if it's a dev test batch of servers, however you would like to group them. To actually create a connection, you just click on this first icon where it says New Connections. And in Azure Data Studio, you have a dialog box that pops up. You can reference existing connections, or you could just type in a new connection. So if I had a new connection, I would first want to decide, do I want to connect at the server level, or do I want to connect at the database level? Now with Management Studio, you always started at the server level. But with Azure Data Studio, you have the option to connect at the database level, to go directly into that database as opposed to browsing through from the server on down. But you can also connect at the server level. So if I'm going to create, for example, a connection to a database, I'll first give it the name of the server, which in this case is Snap. Then I'll come down here. Now you do have some options for the type of authentication. If you're on-prem, chances are you're just going to use Windows authentication. You do have the option for standard SQL Server authentication. If you're connecting into Azure, or you want to use the Azure Active Directory, you also have that option. This option does include multi-factor authentication. So it would be more than just a single login method, but you've got a secondary, perhaps an email validation of your account as you authenticate to that server. In this case, I'm just going to choose Windows authentication, and then I'm going to choose the database. I don't have a direct connection to the admin database, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that. Here is where I can now specify that I want this as a part of a certain server group. You don't actually have to put it into a group, or you could later put it within a group. But at this point, since it's handy, I'm right here, I'll put it into the Snap group. Finally, you have a friendly name. And if you find that your server names are very complicated, not friendly, you would like to have some friendly designation. Maybe this is your dev test server, or this is your dev database. You could type in a friendly name. In this case, I'm just going to type in the same name as the database, but in other cases, maybe you've got a special authentication in this connection, and you could append to the database name, this friendly name, the exact user that you're using to connect to it. And I've got one example of that already set up. So I'll go ahead and click on Connect. And now you can see that that database is a part of this Snap group. Now if I open up a query window, just pick any of these databases and I'll run a query. You'll notice that you have the icon, in this case it's a red icon, presumably because I chose red here. This one is SSIS data. Although I had opened that up previously, I can verify that if I just do another connection. Yeah, so now that's inherited this color. So that's your first indication, although it's not terribly bold in the fact that you're in this red group. So you can do further color coding of the actual tab itself. To do that, you'd want to go to Settings, and under Settings, of course, you have hundreds, if not thousands of options. So you can search through these, and you would simply type in tab color. And from tab color, you can see it's set to off. You can say, well, create a border of the color that you want. And now I believe I'll have to close and reopen that. Let's go ahead and open up a new query. Yeah, so you can see up here, you've got this red border. If that's not quite bold enough, you could say, well, go ahead and fill the tab with that color. And so now you can see this example has the red that's been inherited. And so this will be a nice indication that if you're working on this particular tab and it's in red, you may need a little extra scrutiny over your interactions, knowing that perhaps it's a production database or something. If you want to reorganize these, it's simply a matter of dragging and dropping. So I can move admin down to maybe my Azure, although it's not an Azure database, but that's how you could reorganize these. I'll just move it right back up into the Snap server of databases. You can connect to Azure, as I mentioned before. This is a database that is using a custom account to connect to it, which is read-only. So if we take a closer look at that, manage the look at ELT Snap Reader, you can see that we've connected to a certain server in Azure. This is the actual database. We're using a SQL login as opposed to Azure Active Directory. And we specified a specific SQL account to log in, and we know this is a read-only account. And so for the actual name, the friendly name, I gave it the actual database along with the SQL standard account that I'm using for connecting. You'll also notice that we have a tab that is designated for Azure. So if you choose instead to browse through your Azure databases, you could use this as an option. And here I've got a list of my servers that we have in Azure, or a list of all the databases and which server that they belong to. So this is another way to quickly get access to your Azure-based SQL databases. So that's all we've got for today. Hopefully that was helpful in setting up connections and getting organized, color coding, and having rapid access either to your databases or directly to your servers.